He that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her. That was really some statement in John 8:7. To think that that was told to someone so many years ago, and yet it's exactly what we should be saying to ourselves. If we're without sin, go ahead and cast a stone. If you want to cast a stone at somebody, go ahead, just as soon as you know that you are without sin. People we really love are those about whom we don't want to say anything bad. We don't want to hear anything bad. Our kids, someone in whom we've invested. We don't want to see anything bad. We want to be like that little monkey, see nothing, hear nothing, say nothing. Anyone, students we've invested in. Our parents, usually, we don't want to even think bad of them. In short, we just don't want to throw stones. We may get angry at people we love, or we might be a little angry, put out with our children because they don't do just exactly the way we want them to. Not a little angry. We can get a whole lot angry, and certainly very, very concerned and, yes, worried, I'm afraid, at times at people whom we love. We've invested in them, and we don't want them to hurt themselves, but we don't want to throw stones at them. Not if you love them. You just don't want to throw stones. He that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her. Listen to this. Hold that stone. Don't be throwing that stone. Hold it. Hold it in your hand. Put it in there and grip it and see how long you can keep it right in the palm of your hand before you start throwing stones at someone. Fall in love with people. Fall in love with those you don't particularly like. Or fall in love with those that maybe have something about them, or they own something that you don't particularly like. You know, maybe it's a neighbor and they have a dog and you don't like the dog and you're in trouble with the neighbor. And, if we could just divide that stuff and know that it's the dog barking at night that we don't like, not the neighbor, and never confuse it. And go talk to the neighbor and see if you can sit down, if we could just negotiate. Sit down and talk over what we could do. And not go attack the neighbor. You got this dog that kept me up all night last night and it's bothered me. And, of course, they counterattack and you got a thing going then that goes way out of proportion. Instead of someday going over and saying, boy, the dog's had a time last night, didn't it? You know, and did it keep you awake? You know, truly being concerned about your neighbor's sleep, too. Not a put on. But, you know, we get so angry, I'm going to go over there and get my neighbor about that, and I'm going to kill that dog and kill the person, too. And before you know it, you're throwing a stone. Instead of throwing that stone, why don't you, wonder why they keep it, why they didn't do anything about it. What can they do about it? Is there a husband over there that wants to keep the dog and the wife does it? You might go over and start talking to the lady and she might pour her heart out to you about a whole lot of things, much worse than a dog barking at night. If you just fall in love with people. Care about them more than you care about yourself. Fall in love maybe you don't like older people. Maybe you're a younger person listening to this tape and you say, I don't know what to do around them. I don't know what to say. I don't know, I feel squeamish being around them. Try to think of someone that is older that you do like. Surely there's been a grandmother or a great aunt or someone you've known that you liked, and get to know them a little better. And ask them a few questions. Learn to be an interviewer, if you please. Barbara Walters of the world doesn't have to be the only interviewer. We need to ask people questions, not the interrogating kind, and the kind they wish they wouldn't have answered afterwards, but the kind that would make them say things and tell stories that you wish they had, that would make them interesting. And go from the past to the present to the future. And find out and about those people, and about that older person that you already do like. And then once you're not so afraid to be around them, you'll love them. They have so much to offer. I am so concerned about older people today. I'm 51. I guess I better start getting concerned about them, especially now that when you hit 50, you get something through the mail, AARP, Association for Retired People, and I appreciate it because it's some money off some things if you join and so forth. But, I mean, that people retire at my age and then many times become old and set in their minds. Old is just about that, exactly. Someone who's set in already, their mind's already set. And we're not talking about doctrine or the Word of God or whether you have to be saved or that type of thing, but set on methods and what would be appropriate for the young people to do and in the church for fun and this type of thing. They're set in their ways. And a lot of younger people are set in their ways, ways that don't have to be set, that aren't black and white at all. And, of course, many older people are not set in their ways. And I'm so happy that I've gotten to know older people who are not like that and who just aren't old, and that's all there is to it. People fall in love with older people. Fall in love with the people in your church who are saying, well, I had to step aside. It's probably time to let the younger ones take over. What do you mean let the younger ones take over? We need every single woman and girl of any age who can do anything working in the Lord's army at a time like this. There's no time for them to retire. The younger can take over and do their part, but no one can take the place of those older people who know so much just about the time they step aside. Find an older person and fall in love with them. Pull them back into the mainstream of things. Don't put them over in... We have these Jolly 60s groups, and our church has it too. And I think it's great, and they get to do special things together and all. But that's not the only place that people 60 and over, or whatever, 55 and over, or whatever age that they're supposed to be. They let them have that group. But we also have young people's groups, but they get to do different things in the church also. And many of the people in our Jolly, whatever, Best Years of Our Lives Club, I believe we call it, many of the people are in that, but they're still Sunday school teachers and have been Sunday school teachers 40 or more years in the same class in the same church. Boy, we need them, and the younger people need them. Kids need them. Fall in love with older people, and fall in love with people in nursing homes. Oh, I don't like to go to the nursing home. People are yelling and screaming. Just shut that out and go find one person and talk to them and watch them quit their yelling and screaming just because they have you to help them become more oriented to where they are. They yell and scream sometimes when they wouldn't have to at all because they're so left alone. And they become so disoriented to life. Go fall in love with one of those people, and don't throw your stones. Oh, I don't know why they don't quit their job. They're older, but they ought to make room for the younger. This world has a need for every single Christian in it. There's not enough Christians as it is, let alone that we can say that we've got to let someone else make room for a group or a person. Fall in love with kids. You say, well, a batch of kids over there. No, look at one in the face. Look at maybe a batch of dirty, smelly kids. No, look into the eyes of one of those little kids. Just look into the eyes of, and it won't be, I don't like children. You'll see that you do like children. Fall in love with people so much so that you'll put up with things that you don't really like. People say I don't like Kitty. And Kitty is our 15, 16-year-old cat that lives at our house that we brought from Chattanooga, Tennessee. Joy and David and I went out to Ringgold, Georgia, I believe it was, or Rossville, Georgia, and went to a lady's house who had advertised that she had a lot of kitties, and Joy picked out Kitty. And we brought her home in the car, and that little kitty ran all over that car, and I thought it was going to cause us to wreck, and the kids were little, and it was trouble from the first. But I want to tell you a secret. I do like the cat. I don't want to pet it a lot. It doesn't want to be petted a lot. It's the kind of cat that sort of looks at you and says, are you going to like me or not? And you're supposed to kind of stay away from it and just see how things go. I I think I love to see it curl up in front of the fireplace, and I like to watch it, but I don't spend a lot of time holding it. I'm not really happy with the hair that is on some of the places it gets when it thinks we don't know it's up on a chair, or I'm not happy with the Afghan that came to my hospital bed with cat hair all over it when I asked for a pretty Afghan, and I knew Kitty had been up on the Afghan. And the thing I am most unhappy about Kitty, and her name is Kitty. Joy was so embarrassed when she first took her to the veterinarian when we were came to Indiana, because they said, what is the cat's name? And she thought Kitty was so unimaginative that she put down Tabby. And then she'd forget and say Kitty, and finally we've matured to where we just go ahead and call her. She's Kitty on the vet's list and Kitty on our list too. And so the thing I'm most unhappy about Kitty is the smell. She was a good cat until maybe 5-6 years ago, when we remodeled our downstairs. And we kept moving her litter according to where the workmen were working. And we have never... Now, I know some of you are going to say, you ought to try this, Marlene, you ought to try that. Go ahead, it's all right. But I tell you, I've tried everything I know, and many other people have tried in helping me too, to see to it that kitty goes only in its litter. You know, and after we remodeled, I thought, oh, we've got this nice downstairs. It's not luxurious, but there's a little fireplace there, and I thought, we'll really use that downstairs. No. Kitty has it smelling so bad all the time that we don't even want to go down there. So we have a whole bottom floor of our house for a cat is just about the way I feel. It just tears me up when I go down there and see that nice place that I'd like to bury in the wintertime and have a fire, and sort of it's down underground, you know, and I just would like to go there and forget the world, and it smells to where I don't want to use it. But Joy wants Kitty. And like I say, we've tried everything. I can't get rid of that cat because Joy likes the cat so much. I love Joy, and she likes the cat. And so I don't know that I should let that. I know you probably think I'm crazy and that I should go ahead and just say we're not going to have Kitty. You can think what you want to, but I just know that when you love people, sometimes you also take on the things that they love. And you feel the same way about those things or pets or whatever it is as they do because you love the people so much. And you don't throw stones at Joy having that cat. When Joy got married, December 2nd, 1983, I thought, oh, good. She can take the cat with her, and we'll have the downstairs. And her husband said no. And besides that, they were going into missionary training, and they were students, and they were not allowed to have pets. So Jeff took Joy, and we got Kitty. My husband performed the ceremony, and he said he was going to take Kitty up there on the platform with him and see to it that Jeff said, I do to Kitty as well as Joy, but it didn't work that way. Some of you say, I don't care much for people. Don't. Just fall in love with them so you won't throw stones at them. I don't know what to do around around retarded people. Some of the most enjoyable times and most enjoyable talks and conversation you'll have will be with retarded people. They'll watch you, they'll listen to you, they'll sit there and give you their full attention instead of being so busy with something else or somebody else that they don't even have time to put their full attention on you. They're so refreshing. Oh, I know some of them drool and they look, but look in their eyes. I think so much people's spirit and soul shows through their eyes. And don't look at their slobber. And then you won't be throwing stones and saying, oh, but did you see how she looked? People, the way to not talk about anyone and the way to not be caught talking about anyone is just to fall in love with everyone. Fall in love with people as God fell in love with us. And he took us whether we had weaknesses or whether we didn't. Some of you say, I can handle a cat. I can handle the older people or the retarded or kids. But these smart alecks, these young smart alecks, Well, people, these young smart alecks are just people who probably haven't had enough love somewhere along the way. Or probably at least it wasn't demonstrated to them. Most people have love. But most people have not had love demonstrated to them to the point that they know they've had love. So think of yourself when you were about 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Try to remember. Did you ever sass? Did you ever argue? Did you ever talk back? Did you try to act like you knew it all sometimes because you were so scared you didn't know anything that you just had to show what you did know? Then go up to one of these people, one of these young people who's acting so smart alecky, and get to talking to them and get to know them and see that they really don't feel smart. They don't feel that smart at all. A smart aleck is not smart. That's why they're having to act smart alecky. Well, I don't care. I'm not having anything to do with them. If they're going to act like that, we all of us have unlovely behavior. You're not going to be able to love anyone if you don't love all the things like this that we talk about in different people. Maybe it's teenagers. Just teenagers in general just bother me. Most of them are just walking around looking for someone who will really care about them. The ones that you think are the most adjusted and doing the best. In a Christian high school, maybe. They're saying, well, I don't get really that much attention. You have to either be kind of pretty dumb or act dumb or be very smart or act smart alecky to get any attention. They're wanting attention. They don't have, their hormones are all messed up. You ladies who are listening, and when your hormones are all messed up at different times of the month or different times of your life, you know how it is. Well, that's the way they are, and they need you to love them. Don't pick and choose, and then you won't be getting so upset about them. I know how you talk. I know how I talk. I know you say, that bossy woman, she's just a big boss. And you throw that stone. Watch it. Watch it. Maybe that friend of yours who's bossy just does that instead of leading. I can think of so many times when I know I could have been considered the big boss, and I don't want to be at all. I just hate the word. I hate to think somebody even thinks that of me. And yet I know, because I do lead ladies and girls quite often, that I could very much come off looking that way. And please give me the benefit of the doubt. I can plead for myself on this, and all women who might look, I hope I'm not considered bossy, but who might look bossy sometimes. But you know, when I was a Girl Scout, about 12, 13, 14, and my Aunt Leela, who was kind of my second mother, was the Girl Scout leader. I can remember one time trying to get a Girl Scout meeting together, and I had everything all worked out, and it seemed like no one else would do anything. See, bosses always think that no one else will do anything. And the reason no one else will do anything, because they're afraid to do it, because they already know they might not do it the way the boss wants it, and that the boss will cut their head off for it. And so everybody wants to do something, but they're just scared to do something for people who have to have it perfect, or perfect meaning the way the bossy person wants it. And so I acted really bossy. And I can remember one of the mothers of the Girl Scouts said, oh, the boss did such and such. And I can remember being cut. I knew that wasn't a good word. I knew I didn't want it connected with my name, but I didn't know what to do about it. And if I remember my heart, I didn't want to be a boss. I just hadn't been taught really any way to lead. I hadn't known to just sit down and suggest other people to do things, and that I could lead in that way. I really think that I thought a boss had to do it all herself and all her own way, and just sort of sit back and get mad at other people for not doing something. So here's a woman who doesn't do much, and she's throwing a stone at the bossy woman. And here's the bossy woman throwing a stone at the woman who won't do anything. And pretty soon we've got stones being thrown all over the church, or the meeting room, or the home, or wherever it is. And we kill each other. That's what we do. When we throw stones, pretty soon someone's going to die. I was a big boss during the Second World War, and because I'm 51 now, and the Second World War was 41 through 45, I believe. Well, you can imagine, you could know just about what age I was. And I took a group home I called them the Commandos, a group of girls from my class, and I decided that every girl should know how to jump out of a tree. I don't even know where I got the idea, but I decided that my part to help win the war was to try to help every girl in my class in Wymore, Nebraska to jump out of a tree. And one girl wouldn't jump out of the tree. And therefore I went up and pushed her out of the tree. That led to her having a broken ankle, splintered in a million ways, and she never did get over it. Her ankle was, the last time I saw her, still very, very bad. Because I thought everybody was supposed to do what I said. And I didn't really want it. I just didn't know what else to do. There was a scrap drive during the Second World War. And I thought I was the only one that was going to help beat Hitler. And therefore I was out picking up waste cans and scrap and helping beat them out. And I'd been out with my little red wagon all day picking up things door to door and asking women for their scrap. And then that supposedly was sent into plants that recycled it for war, the things that needed to be used in the war, tanks and guns and this type of thing. As far as I knew, that's what happened. And when I came home that night, I was all tired and just about sick, but Mom said I couldn't go back to where they were going to smash out the cans that night. And I said, you just want Hitler to win the war. I was so bossy, and wanted to where I wanted to boss my mother. And when I was at Bob Jones University, I wasn't a leader or a boss. The first 2 years I was there. The third year, they asked me to be a monitor on my dorm floor. And I began to little by little get the idea of leading instead of bossing. But then I married after graduating and became an officer in the Bob Jones University Wives Association. And I worked out something really nice for a really great banquet for them. And the wives voted not to have it. So I didn't want to go at all. You know how it is? There's just something in you. If you're Miss Boss. But people, those of you who don't have any bossy tendencies, or if they're underneath and you do them with suggestions, you boss through suggestions or little quiet remarks, don't throw stones at us. And I won't throw a stone at you when it doesn't seem like you do very much. I've tried and tried over the years to become more of a leader when I'm supposed to lead, and when I'm not supposed to lead, be a follower. It's been a wonderful thing to realize that if I'm not in charge, I can just relax. I don't have to criticize. I don't have to get up and tell the leader how I think it should be done. I don't even have to put up my little hand and give a suggestion. I can just relax. So that might be something that would be good for you if you do have bossy tendencies to know. And people, don't throw stones at yourself either. Don't say, I know what she's talking about and I'm bossy. I'm just bad. That's all. Bad, bad, bad. No, just take down a little note that says, if I'm not in charge, I can relax. And now so many people say, I don't know when to take over and when not to. The answer is when you're in charge. If you're left in charge of your kids and you're at home and your kids are home and no one else is, you should be in charge. So you take over. You don't relax that completely, that's for sure. But you get in the car to go with your husband someplace and he's in charge, so you relax. And something about second guessing your husband when he's driving. I remember one time a lady saying that she always put her foot on the brake, an imaginary brake on the right-hand side of the car. And she wasn't in England either. When her husband put his foot down, she'd put her foot down. And they did have an accident. She was trying to drive for him, and they did have an accident. But because her foot was going down so hard, she broke her foot very, very badly. And if she'd have been more relaxed, it's very possible that she wouldn't have. It's so good. You just can't be in charge all the time, people. It just takes everything. It takes so much out of you. And therefore, if you know when you're not in charge to relax, it'll help you so much. But I don't want to throw stones at older people, younger people who don't use older people, or kids, or people who think I should not let Kitty be downstairs, or Joy for having Kitty, or someone who's retarded, or someone who doesn't like the retarded and doesn't want to get around them. I don't even want to throw stones at the people who make fun of the retarded. I feel sorry for them, but I need to get to know them and help bring them in with a retarded person and hold that stone in my hand. Just hold it tight. Don't throw it at the retarded or the person who gets after or makes fun of the retarded, either one. I don't want to throw it at anyone. I can't afford it. I don't want to throw it at the apathetic, because I know how it is when you're sick and you're very apathetic, or you get on some particular medicine that makes you very apathetic. I know how to try to think how it was when you were a certain way, or your mom or dad or kids, and that way you can relate it to yourself. He that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her. Remember that. Maybe you say, I don't like to get around loud people. It just hurts my ears. But think of someone in your family that does have a loud voice. I don't like to be around quiet people. You have to strain to hear what they're saying. I just don't care for them. Or why don't they speak up? Or why don't they shut up? Throw stones, throw stones, throw stones. People, hold that stone. If you accept the weaknesses of people, someday you will be the one to get to have their strengths. I've seen that happen so often. The other day someone was telling me, said, I thought my dad was stingy. I even called him stingy behind his back when I was a little kid and when I was growing up. And even after my sisters and brothers and I married, we said Dad was stingy. But Dad passed away, and he had taken care of every one of us. He had been very careful with his money because he had seen to it that he took care of every one of us. And here we've been calling him stingy. Don't call anyone stingy. Don't label people, not even in your minds. If you say it in your minds, it'll finally come out of your mouth. Because out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. Just the minute you start to say, remember that little trick I used to use, substitute thinking? Just as soon as something comes into your mind, my dad's stingy. Get something really, and say, well, he might, maybe he grew up during the Depression, and he's, I don't know what he's gone through, and I don't know that I'm ever always going to be able to take care of me and mine, and he has been. And you can only think one thought at a time. So knock that thought out of the right hand of your side of your mind or brain with this better thought that you're putting in the left-hand side of your mind or brain. Don't let you're going to have to break the habit of throwing stones. How long have you kept that stone? Have you kept it through this part of the tape already? Or have you already at least mentally thrown it at someone? Accept the weaknesses of people, and someday you might get their strengths. My mom and dad-in-law, Mom and Dad Evans, live close to the college now, here in Indiana. They moved here in October 1984, just a year before I'm making this tape. They used to have a trailer court for Bob Jones University students in Greenville, South Carolina. There was a little girl, 8, 9, 10, 11, when she was living in the court, who used to skate up and down the sidewalks. And Mom would tell her, now get off those sidewalks, you're cracking the sidewalks, you're going to run into people. And she helped work some weaknesses, or what she thought was weaknesses, some supposed weaknesses out of her. Now Mom and Dad Evans are very, very sick. And that little girl is a Hiles-Anderson College wife, and she's over helping take care of Mom and Dad Evans. Watch out, people. Watch out about throwing stones. You don't know when you're going to need that person at whom you're throwing the stone. Hold that stone. He that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her. I can just give you story after story of where people needed the folks that they threw stones at. Hold that stone. He that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her. Don't cast a stone with me at Hiles-Anderson College, who came in when the college was new 11, 12, and 13 years ago. 72, 73, 74, 75 in there, who had some weaknesses or things that I certainly thought were weaknesses, and everybody else around seemed to also, when they came to the college. But I stayed by them, and I've been taught that. Our preacher teaches that. Stay by people. And you know, some of those very people I stayed by through their weaknesses. Now that I've been sick the last 2 or 3 years, off and on with cancer, chemotherapy, different things, several operations, they are the ones who have been a strength for me. And I often wonder, what if I had thrown them out? What if I had thrown stones at them? You know, teachers are infamous for gossiping and throwing stones. I don't like their family. I don't like that kid. You mean I get that kid next year? I've had his sister. I know what that family's like. And they throw stones at people they themselves might need someday, just for selfish purposes. Don't throw stones. We really want our own way more than we want another person's good. You know, there's this issue about working outside the home. You know, now that ladies have meetings and magazines and tapes and all the things. 10 years ago, 11 years ago, we just didn't have many women on fundamental tapes. And we have hundreds of them now. And there's a meeting on every little street corner almost around the country. People just from our church, we have 2 or 3 or 4 groups in our church and school that go out for meetings. And besides all the other places around the country. But, you know, as we've gotten a little more trained and taught, then I guess our problems get a little more sophisticated. So now we've got this thing where if you work outside your home, you're bad. She works outside the home. She should be a Proverbs 31 woman. And then the woman who works outside the home said, see, Proverbs 31, the woman worked outside the home. She went and bought and sold land and sold things. And so she shouldn't be saying anything about anybody, and she throws a stone back. Oh my goodness, people. Let's let wives and their husbands and their own families and maybe a pastor in with them, let's let them decide for themselves. There are different reasons. I've seen people take after ladies who were working outside the home that their husband and pastor had asked them to work outside the home. And they might not always do it, but at the time they've asked them to. So you're going against the woman doing what her husband wants her to do. When you let's don't throw stones. And then, I know all the arguments. The people who work outside the home say, well, the people who stay at home don't really stay at home anyway. They're always putting their kids at a babysitter's or dragging them around town or on the phone or at the door talking to somebody half the day. I do more with my kids and give them more quality time by working than if I was just home thinking I had all day to myself. Oh, come on, people. We don't have to decide for everybody else. Let's quit throwing the stones. So a lot of ladies, the husband's lost the job. The husband is sick. The husband's not there for one reason or another. And then they hear us saying you can't be the mother that you should be. Let's just pray for women who are out working outside the home. That they'll do everything they can to be the mother they are supposed to be when they're inside the home, and wherever they are, they'll do the best wherever they are. Let's pray for them. And if they're supposed to be led, if that particular mother is supposed to be led back into her home, pray that God will lead her back into her home full time. And if a woman who's staying at home is running around all the time, and every time somebody wants someone to do something, they're saying she can do it because she doesn't work outside the home. And she's gone more than the woman who works outside. Let's pray for her. Let's just pray for one another. We don't know the temperaments, the backgrounds. We know nothing sometimes about why a person should do one or the other. Let's just love the woman who works outside the home and love the woman who stays at home. Sometimes the woman who stays at home says, I believe a woman's place is in the home. And it's so, it's so cutting and so hurtful. And sometimes full-time Christian workers have decided between themselves, the husband and wife, we are going to be in full-time Christian work. We know we can't get a full salary, and we're going to both work, and the husband is not going to take a second or a third job to keep things going, but is going to help with the home and help with the children, and does do that. And that's the way they want to work it out. And in another case, the husband wants to take a second or third job and have his wife at home all the time. And that's fine. It's not up to us, people. We don't have to throw any stones. Relax. Relax. Good news. We don't have to throw the stones. Or the temperaments. Tim LaHaye brought an old study into Christian popularity, the temperament study. Sanguine, melancholic, choleric, phlegmatic, and this type of thing. I have a couple tapes on it. I really enjoy the study. I taught it quite a bit, and still it is. I would say it's one of these studies that's helped me most to understand myself and try to temper my anger against some of my weaknesses, and not excuse my weaknesses, but try to use a strength to pull a weakness up than any other thing I've ever seen. But I never mention those words anymore. I just don't. People have beat each other over the head about them. It's almost become a religion in some cases. When I used to teach it, I remember a family gathering where I was told about a couple people had heard me teach it, and they went into their family gathering and started talking like, can a sanguine marry a sanguine and still be happy? They'd missed the whole point. The whole point was that God can temper any personalities, any temperaments, and that with God all things are possible. That was the whole story. So I might talk about different backgrounds and different personalities and temperaments, but I never name them. People were going up, you're melancholic, aren't you? And the person just, what, and they'd studied it, and so all they thought of was the weaknesses and felt completely hurt because they didn't think they had those weaknesses at all. And it just was used as something to beat each other over the head with. Let's fall in whatever their personality, if they're quiet, if they're loud, if they seem to be. Let's don't label anybody. Sometimes I think the less we try to figure them out and just love them, the better. And then we've gone through other studies, the color study. It was fun. I loved it. We have some people at the college who really have fun studying that. And I think just girls and women like to study color and fabrics and clothes, and I just think it's a lot of fun. But even that got to where we wanted to almost, you're not wearing your color, are you? Yeah, I think it's my color. And they got into fights almost over which color each other was supposed to be wearing. And some said, I don't care whether it's my color or not. I'm going to wear what I like. Isn't that a bunch of foolishness? It was just supposed to be something that if you wanted to take, it was just something nice and fun to use. But we just want to keep throwing those old stones. We just like it. I don't know why, but we just like it. Hold that stone. There's so many different studies. There's a study on different body types. And if you say, you're a type A, aren't you? Well, they're hard driving people that, no. You think, are you saying I'm a workaholic? You're just scared to get into any of that because people so love, it seems like, to label other folks. Don't label them, love them. Don't label them, love them. Don't throw those stones. Not until you're without sin. There's another little study once that I like these I think they're fun. And it just seems like to me they make sense in a lot of ways unless you take them too far. For ladies, there was a psychologist once, I don't even know Christian or not, I don't even know where it came from, but it sure described me back in my younger days, it said that some ladies go through a spring, a summer, a fall, and a winter week of the month. And in the winter, that's in the dead of winter, and they're not feeling so good. And spring, wow, everything's fine. We're going to be able. Summer, they're sort of mellow, and fall, they're going down again, sort of. And that was kind of the way it was with me. But but some people want to. They say, "Oh, are you in the fall?" No, I'm not. And you've got to. You got to. It's almost like you're throwing stones at each other again. We really want our own way more than we want another person's good. We want people to believe and do what we're believing and doing. And if someone is working outside the home and we aren't, we don't want anyone else to either, and we don't want them to believe in it. And we want to use Scripture to whip them over the head with it. It seems like instead of loving them. Or if we're working, we want to be sure everybody else is out there working, and she just stays home. Are you kidding? All that there is for a woman who really keeps a home, is really a homemaker. She works day and night. If she really is truly a wonderful homemaker. People, I love full-time homemakers. And I love people who do their best at being a homemaker and also work part-time or full-time out of the home. And I want to pray for them all. I want them all to do God's will for them, whatever it might be. Now, I might put my judge robes on and start judging and not really act that way. But I don't feel that. I don't want to label them working woman, non-working woman. They all work. So, but people mother in different ways, and people are homemakers in different ways, and some spend less time in the home but keep a clean home and have their clothes and food and everything ready. But they're not. They don't spend hours and hours maybe with one cranberry dish or something. Which I love the cranberry dishes that someone spends hours and hours on. But maybe they're not that type of homemaker. Let's don't label them. Let's just love them. If we really cared about a lady showing every move of her body, instead of caring that we get our own way, we would never have had a fight about the pants issue, whether a woman should or shouldn't wear pants. I believe a woman shouldn't wear pants. I have to this day to fight over it. I love ladies who wear pants, slacks, trousers, whatever you want to call them. Some culottes that pull around the bottom just like pants do. Any kind of pant. Pedal pushers, shorts, whatever. I don't want to fight them. Just love them. And if God, and pray for God. Are you caring that woman is showing every movement of her body? Is that the concern that you have? Then you won't be throwing stones at her. You'll be loving her until someday she says, why do you always wear skirts? And you'll be able to say, and even then, let her make her decide. I'm talking to ladies now. I know different churches with preachers have different rules they have to set down, but I'm just talking lady to lady. We don't have to have a fight over this thing. I so often remember every time Mrs. John R. Rice comes to our college once a week every semester, and I watch her so carefully every time I get a chance to be around her. And sometimes when we're at the mall or different places where people will come around, and there'll be some girl in tight-fitting, not just pants, but tight-fitting hip-hugger jeans, and they look so terrible. And Mrs. Rice just smiles at them, just sits and smiles at them. Maybe she doesn't even know them. Pretty soon that girl's drawn over to her, and Mrs. Rice starts talking to her, and sometimes gets to lead her to the Lord, because she looks into the eyes. Don't label them, love them. Hold that stone until you are without sin. Why don't we? We're more worried about our feelings when someone turns us down to do something than we are about the person failing. Like someone's undependable and doesn't bring the cookies they promised us they were going to bring for the church social or whatever it is, DVBS or whatever. We don't ever think, I'm so sorry for that person. That person's going to get a reputation for being undependable and they're not going to be able to be used of God. That would temper how we go up to them and say, I missed you this morning. Maybe I missed you this morning. And the person says, I forgot to bring those cookies. And you say, oh, I'm sorry. Is there anything, could I have done something to have reminded you? Because I know you're the kind that wants to bring things. When you say, did I mess up in any way? It's going to temper. You're going to care so much about them that you're going to care more about whether, you're not going to label them undependable. You're going to say, how could I help them not do that to someone else again? No, instead of us, wait till I see them. Boy, they're crazy. They told me that, and I depended on them, and now look. We might as well decide that you've got to go way over the number of cookies, because we're going to have some people that need to be trained dependability. We've had to have it. I've had to have it. I still have to have it. Or say you're a Sunday school teacher and someone doesn't pay attention in class. I've heard of Sunday school teachers coming, how'd you get along with Susie today? You know, right, all the Sunday school teachers gathering in a department, how'd she act today? Boy, if anyone says that to you, unless it's the superintendent coming up and, how was it with Susie? Did you try what we talked about last week? Well, let's try something else then. We just got to help her do right in that class. No, it's, how'd you do with Susie? Boy, isn't she a handful. And no wonder. We're going to throw stones at our own Sunday school class members, our own Christian school kids. No wonder the parents take them out of Sunday school or out of the Christian school. They can get criticism of their kids in the public school or not even take them to church and get criticism of the kids. Maybe Susie is a handful and maybe she needs real help. But it's how you talk and who you talk to about it that makes the difference. Or he's always late. You can just about guess on it. People, I had some problems in September 1985, and Dr. Dennis Streeter had some tests run, and I was having a myelogram and an angiogram 2 different days at a good hospital. And those are pretty difficult tests, and I guess could be considered minor surgery. And you're awake, and you know what's going on, and you know there could be some risks to them. And you know what the people were talking about who were working over me? Just wait, she'll be late, they said. And I'm lying there, half out of it, with the shots for the pre-op thing, but I'm not going to be completely out. And see, I told you she was going to be late, they said. And then she's always late. Boy, do you imagine how that made me feel when I'm lying under a big machine waiting for I don't know what to happen, and they're talking about one of their co-workers being late? You hear it every place. It wouldn't just be, it's every hospital, it's every school, it's every church, it's every home. Let's quit throwing stones. Let's love instead of labeling. She's late. This one's a handful. That one, you don't have the right color on. You're a melancholic. You're a working mother. You wear pants. You're a pants wearer. Let's love them instead of labeling them. You know, I was talking with Linda Stubblefield, who's the business coordinator for Christian Womanhood, the other day, and I said, Linda, when you first knew me, she's been with me many years now, and I said, when you first knew me, would you have believed I was a crook if you had known that I don't know what's in my garage and what isn't in my garage and storeroom? Joellen Lee worked with me years ago, and she left some things there when she went away, and I told her she could, and she had someone else's things there, and things have come and gone in my storeroom and garage. And I know there must be things there that do not belong to me, because we've had so many people leave things there. And I said, would you have believed that I wouldn't know what was in my garage? And she said, no, I would have thought you were a crook or a liar. She said, now I sure do believe it. But see, she would have labeled me. And I'm not getting after her. I've labeled people crooks and liars too. Just because I don't just love them And just see, you're not going to get to know everybody the way Linda's gotten to know me through the years and understand what the situation is. So we don't ever you never know anyone long enough or deep enough to label them. Why don't we just decide that? Oh, if I could decide that, there's no one I know well enough to label. People are complex, and they change, and they add, and they grow. And by the time you label them, they're going to change their label anyway. Save face for all you love. Help them work through their problems. And if you're saving face for them, you're not going to be going around labeling. I'm never going, sometimes you say, I'm never going any place with them again. I tried twice. It didn't work out. We got in fusses. They made me feel so bad. I'm just not going to try again. I'm quitting. Or I'm not going to go back to work for that guy ever again. I've asked to see him twice, and he hasn't seen me yet, so I'm just quitting. And maybe both times that person really, truly wasn't there. But no, we just decide, we just judge, we decide, we throw our stone, we label instead of love. Give people what they need, not what you'd like to give them. I don't know what you would like to give them. Sometimes you'd like to give people total honesty. What are you doing wearing that? That's totally inappropriate. It looks terrible on you. Okay, go ahead and give them total honesty, but watch their faces fall. Watch their voices drop. Do you really like doing that to people? A lot of people, you'll have to take me the way you get me, I guess. I'm honest. I tell what I think. Well, it sure would be good if you just decided I'm telling what I think is labeling and throwing stones. And I'm just going to love and keep what I think in my head and then try to even get that thought out of my mind so it won't even show on my face. And so it certainly won't come out of my mouth. I told Mrs. Hayes recently, Pat Hayes, assistant editor of Christian Womanhood, it was back in the spring, I guess. I said, Pat, you're having a foot operation. And I said, you're going to have one of those big shoes. And I said, leave it on as long as you can because people will give you sympathy and give you the benefit of the doubt as long as you have on a big shoe. And, I really meant that. You almost have to have a crutch, a brace, a neck collar, a big shoe, a cast, something before people will cease to label you. And then a lot of times they'll say you're just doing it to get attention for yourself. Fall in love with people, and then we can just about imagine that everybody around us is hurting some way or other. Whether it's emotional hurt, which is just as bad, and which we all have, just as much as physical hurt, or whatever kind of hurt it is. And just fall in love with them. I started labeling people young. The first one I remember, of course, was Gladys Prigga in the first grade in East Ward School in Wymore, Nebraska. And she didn't wear the right type of glasses for those days. She wore brown rim glasses, I think it was, and those weren't in right then. And she wore long socks, like we were also supposed to wear, those long brown socks in Nebraska, and they were so ugly. And we all knew to roll them down to our ankles as soon as we left home, except her. She went ahead and wore them up. And I said, and we said she was dumb and ugly and stupid and klutzy and I don't know what all. And May Day came around, May Basket Day. Mom made my little May baskets, and like Valentine's Day at school in the Midwest, Nebraska and Iowa at least, you fixed little baskets on May 1st, and you went and knocked on people's door and left them a little basket with candy and nuts and your name in it, and ran. If they caught you, they could kiss you. I didn't want her to kiss me, and it wasn't even because there was any funny stuff going on then. I just didn't want, I wasn't going to have her, dumb, klutzy, whatever she was. And then when I got home, I had a lot of May baskets waiting on my porch. And the next morning at school, people went around and said, how many did you get? How many did you get? 22, 26. We got to Gladys Prigga, and she said 1 and looked at me. And I realized how wonderful it was to be free of labeling people and therefore not loving them and not doing for them. I won't say that ever since for the first grade I learned my lesson. but I began learning it then. We excuse ourselves when we throw stones at people and when we label them by saying things like, I was just teasing. By the way, teasing isn't funny when there really is a point to it. Or I was tired, I had a cold, I had a headache, I had gotten a shot, I had the flu, the kids were sick. It's emotional overload, it's work overload, it's sinus trouble, it's allergies, it's that time of the month, I'm out of perspective, midlife crisis, jet lag, I was provoked to wrath, I'm on medicine, I failed a test, my parents are sick, I have family problems, unpaid bills, flat tire, the weather's bad, I just have a sarcastic sense of humor, I guess, I was under pressure, it's just my way of joking. But people, if you fall in love with people, folks, if any of these things are happening, the right thing is going to automatically come out of you because you've already practiced not labeling them but loving them. And therefore, if you're tired, you might not be real outgoing to them, but you'll still give them a weak little smile. If you really love instead of label, you won't throw stones when any of those things are going on in your life. Love mankind enough even to love what God made in you. Say things, take compliments to yourself and say thank you instead of, oh, I'm not, it's old. No, I can't do that as well as my sister. Or you should see my brother. Or just say thank you. God made something good about you and he did it. And any good gift comes from him. And therefore say thank you. Or when you're seemingly attacked, don't have to defend yourself or explain. Like someone going down the hall and they say, oh, I thought you were supposed to be at work. Well, you see, and you go into a half-hour explanation when all you need to do is smile and say, no, not right now. Or sometimes you want to get a nap or take a little relaxation or excitement or fun, and you're scared to say that you're going to do it because people might think that you're something. I don't know. Love mankind enough even to love what God made in you. And he made in you the need for rest, relaxation, excitement, and fun. Don't throw stones at yourself. Make this part of your work for God even. You are one of God's kids, keeping yourself fit to help God's other kids. So be able to stand for what's right, be a good testimony, but don't be concerned about people if they label you for taking a nap or having fun or being excitable. I've had people say she's kind of emotional. She's it's sort of, how it is, that she's like that. Well, it's the way God made me. And of course, everybody's emotional, but some just keep it in. Just don't let that bother you at all. Just say, yes, I really am. It's sort of the way God made me, I guess. If we love people, we'll not always hang with people who fill our needs, but we'll go to people and fill their needs. We'll not always say no to the people that we don't want to be with and then say yes to the ones we want to be with. We'll meet other people's needs. Look at your stone, or the imaginary one that you've got in your hand. Get it ready. Please don't throw it away. When you're ready, which is perfect, be perfect. He that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her. When you're perfect, aim it at the first person that who irritates you or says something stupid. Until then, hold that stone and don't label them. Love them.